Hey, everybody. I'm Pastor David, and with me, I have two lovely ladies, Jenni and Jody, and both of them are homeschool moms. And actually, they run a homeschool consultation thing. So they'll talk more about that. But I know a lot of you are starting out with small group, or not just small groups. A lot of you are starting out with homeschool and virtual school and all that stuff. And so there's just questions about what does this mean? How do I do this? And so I thought I'd get two experts on the subject and have them share a little bit about it. So let's just start off. A lot of people in Hope Kids or are seeing this don't know who you two are. So let's just introduce yourselves and you tell us who your family is and how long you've been homeschooling, that type of thing. So Jenni, why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay, so I'm Jenni Stahlmann, and I am the mom of 7, ages 3. Well, no, she just turned 4 to 22. I've been homeschooling for 16 years, and I also homeschooled one on the autism spectrum. And I began homeschooling because my 5-year-old at the time was struggling in private school. She was getting in trouble for not paying attention. And so when I went to find out what was going on, I easily saw that all the excitement of the classroom and all the students were way too overwhelming for her. And so we pulled her out and began homeschooling in kindergarten. She graduated in 2017 with 63 college credits and a 4.0 GPA, and she went to a very competitive music conservatory, which she just graduated from this year.
So I'm Jody Hagaman. I have 3 kids from 21 all the way up to 32, and I've been homeschooling for over 20 years. I'm now homeschooling the next generation. I've got 2 grandbabies, but my oldest grandchild, she's 3.5, is besties with her 4-year-old. We live 6 houses apart, so so we're homeschooling them and starting all over again with all this fun stuff. But my oldest, I started homeschooling when he was going into 7th grade, not because I felt this amazing call to homeschool, but because he begged me to homeschool him, and I was like, no way. And he said, Mom, did you pray about it? So that was a little convicting. And when I did pray about it, well, here we are. So he ended up with a full-on Bright Futures scholarship in undergrad and on to law school, so they can go to college. And that is a big question we get.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he now is working for a nonprofit. It's a bipartisan organization who really tries to bring awareness to our fiscal responsibility as a nation, but he's the regional director in the upper Northeast. He's in New Hampshire. My other daughter went through police academy and is back in school because she has a different path in mind. And my youngest is a paralegal who is getting married next month and wants to go on to law school, but wants to get married first. Okay. So we've been doing this a while.
Yeah. Now together, we've been working for over a decade together. We have worked with hundreds and hundreds of families. We did a parenting radio show for 6 years that was syndicated in different parts of the country. We have a syndicated parenting newspaper column. But we, a little less than a year ago, started a podcast for homeschoolers because we have been traveling for the past 5 or 6 years around the country, speaking at homeschool conventions. We have a little bit of an original approach to homeschooling. We believe in homeschooling with the end result in mind and partnering with the Lord to discern the call on the child's life, their bent, their interests, and then help them to become specialists and mini experts in their area and use their homeschooling experience to give them a very customized and unique but powerful education.
Because we have that opportunity, and it's something we tend to forget when we begin getting immersed in all of this.
So that's what we usually travel and talk about, and that's what we talk about on our podcast. We also have a Facebook group that's wonderful because there's lots of veteran homeschoolers that can answer questions, and that is on Facebook called Homeschooling from Cradle to Calling.
That's awesome. And we'll when we'll wrap up this, I'll get those with those podcasts and things, and we'll put it
Sure.
in the description, and so that people can link to those and be part of those things. So because
Awesome.
we'll put this on YouTube and Facebook, and so we can put all that out. So so what's happened is coronavirus has happened and the pandemic has happened, and now virtual school is a thing. And now parents are homeschooling. I know of at least several parents that are part of our community, part of our church, that are homeschooling for the very first time. And they weren't planning on doing this. We were just talking before we started recording here that my son is homeschooling kindergarten for and we weren't going to homeschool, but COVID and all the uncertainty and all that. So for the parents that are just starting out in homeschooling, what should they know? What are some things that they need to be looking out for as they step into this foray of homeschool?
Well, so there's two different camps that you kind of introduced. You talked about the camp, I think that you're in, Pastor David, where you've actually made the decision to homeschool, which means that you have control over the curriculum choices. So that's one camp. And then there's the virtual schooling parents who are partnering with either their regular school or they're using Florida Virtual School. And they are basically just doing school, but at home remotely. And they're two totally different experiences. So let's talk to the homeschooling camp.
Okay.
And there's three things that they have to do. The first thing they have to do is they have to get legal. And in the state of Florida, there are two ways to do that. Now, as a kindergartner, you actually are not, there's no compulsory education in Florida for kindergarten. So you don't have to register as a homeschooler. You can just go ahead and jump right in. But
So
once
you're
your
not having
child
a truant
is,
officer hunting them down. You got to get your truant 5-year-old in there.
correct. And so you have two different options for that. If you want to homeschool, you need to, by the age of 6, you need to contact the county that you live in, their Board of Education, and you need to submit a letter of intent explaining that you're going to homeschool. The anniversary that they receive that letter is extremely important because in the following year before that anniversary, you'll need to submit some sort of verification, and there's a variety of different ways you can do that. The other option is to enroll in a Florida state umbrella school. This is basically a legal covering that's registered with the State Department of Education, and that you then homeschool under their legal umbrella. And so every umbrella school has different requirements. Some have virtually none, and others have all sorts of requirement, even to what curriculum you use. We do own an umbrella school. We're pretty flexible in our requirements. We don't have very many. But we also don't open it to the vast public. But if anyone in Church of Hope is looking for an umbrella school, they can talk to us and we can discuss that with them. So here's how you would choose. If you want to be anonymous, if you want to just have complete freedom and you don't want any oversight, an umbrella school is the way to go. If you want to do anything connected to the school district, so if you want to do sports, if you want to do music programs, if you want
IEPs,
if you have an IEP and you want special education services, if you have older kids and you want to use the dual enrollment system, you must register with the county. If you are going to use a certified teacher to do a portfolio review as your means of showing that you have completed requirements for education, and you want that help, you want that oversight, you're probably better off registering with the county, unless you find an umbrella school that does lots of hands-on, one-on-one, and some of them do.
Some do, and they typically reflect that in the cost. That can be very costly.
Yeah, some of them are costly, and some of them are next to nothing.
Yeah.
We're more to the next to nothing side of things. So once you're legal, the next step is to create a plan. And what we recommend that families do is they make a list of subjects that they want to cover. Obviously, at the elementary level, you need the basics of learning how to learn. You need the tools of learning. And the tools of learning, of course, involve reading, writing, and basic math. And so
the 3 R's. Does anybody know the 3 R's?
I know.
We say it, and people are like, what is the 3 R's?
We were
reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yeah.
But it starts with an A, but we're not going to talk about
I know. We won't talk about that. But it's funny that we find people, we thought that was this commonplace. We thought that was just everybody knew that, but no.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is get some recommendations, and we'll talk about that in the third step, and find curriculum. I think I heard you say, Pastor David, that you guys are using, were you the ones who said you're using a Becca Academy?
No, that was the Lowrys. The Lowrys are going to use a Becca Academy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we, again, it all has to do with, we think there's really two factors in choosing your curriculum. One is your child. How do they learn? Lots of kids learn really well from a structured curriculum, and other kids think that that's absolute torture.
Notice we say kids.
Yeah.
Kids. we gotta tune into the kids here.
Right.
Not what we want.
But we also have to take into account our own, what we can bring to the table. Yeah. So if you're both working full time, you're going to need something that's boxed and ready to go. You're going to need maybe an online community that can support your child and answer their questions. And so you've got to see and then you've got people who just hate sitting and reading with their kids, and then you've got other people who really probably wanted to be a teacher and never pursued that, and they can't wait to start writing lesson plans. I mean, these people,
and they've got their lectures ready to go.
They will. I mean, when we started homeschooling, I actually, in the beginning, 16 years ago, I got desks, and we put a flag up, and we started with the pledge, and I mean, we brought school into home, and then I changed. But you have to figure out what works with your family, and then you order your curriculum and you structure your day. Nothing says you have to school in the same hours that the school system does. We know lots of families one family comes to mind in particular whose husband is a chef. And so he keeps very late hours, but they're a close-knit family. And so they all sleep really late and stay up really late. So they don't start homeschooling until most people are long done homeschooling, but that works for their family. You just have to figure out a plan that's going to work for your family. And know, too, that field trips count. Cooking in the kitchen and having your kids participate counts in the elementary level. We also need to know what your state requirements are, and that's part of being legal. At the elementary level in Florida and even the middle school level, there's not a whole lot of requirements from the state for homeschoolers. Once you get to the high school level, what really matters more than anything else is where they're headed. Yeah. So if you've got high schoolers home for the first time, you need to kind of figure out where they're going to go after high school and contact those people and find out what their requirements are, because that matters more than anything else.
Yeah.
Once
the college
you figure
board
out
really care.
Yeah, right. Once you figure out your plan and you've got a plan, then the last step is you need to get support. And to get support, we recommend two things. One, get virtual support. Facebook has fabulous groups. Here locally, there are 3 in particular that we can recommend. One is a Facebook group that's called Legacy of Learners. They've got quite a few hundred people in their group. And they are a Christian online local homeschool Facebook support group. They don't have anything. They do some stuff like field trips and stuff, but they don't have like a physical location. No. But you can ask lots of questions. There's a larger group that's not specifically Christian, but there's lots of Christian homeschoolers on there, and that's called the Happy Homeschooling Group. I want to say of Sarasota and Manatee, or Manatee and Sarasota, but the Happy Homeschooling Group. And they've got well over 1,000 members locally. So it's a great way to ask questions. You can get on there and say, tell me your favorite math program. What do you love about your history program? What's your favorite phonics curriculum? And then we have a group that's got about 400 people locally called Generation Harvest. And that's just a Facebook group. It's not like a meet in person thing. But there's also a homeschool organization in Sarasota, Manatee called Learning and Families. It is a Christian homeschool organization. Jody and I sit on the board of directors. Jody's actually the president of the board of directors. And they've been around this year. We're celebrating our 35th year.
They've been around a long time.
They've got about 250 families involved, and they offer a wide range of opportunities from small groups broken up by age. They've got a field trip group that does weekly field trips for elementary age students.
They have a yearbook.
Yep, a prom.
Wow.
They do a science fair. They've got all kinds of events that happen throughout the year. There's a kindergarten graduation for your kindergartner, which is so precious.
We just did. Jenni just put on a senior graduation for Learning and Families. It was beautiful.
They really do honor their families really
well. We had
in
a wonderful homeschool speaker from the other side of the state. She was our keynote. She was awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have a lot of contacts and they do a lot of stuff. They have a co-op. The problem with Learning and Families at this point in the game is some of the classes are tapped out.
They're full.
So, but they're not all full. So you can get in there.
It's worth getting on a waiting list.
But you can join their group for, I think membership is $75
for the year, for the whole family.
For the family, and you can do all their field trips. You can do stuff like that. And then the co-op is a little bit separate from that, meaning as far as fees and registration and stuff like that. But it's worth getting in there and getting plugged in if this is something that you need, especially for the year. Your kids can find friends.
Lots of social opportunities.
And you can connect with other parents.
And educational enrichment too.
Totally.
Yeah. I think for me, when I think about homeschool and I think about my public school education, as I think about all the opportunities that I had, like I played football, I was on a science club, and that was just high school. And that's not what I did in middle school and elementary school. And I think about homeschool, and it's like those opportunities don't exist. But what you're saying is that like is that they do have those. We just got to plug into those, and so kids can they're not missing out on the school experience.
We actually have locally we have a homeschool sports league called Heat. And they've got a variety of different homeschool level competitive sports that travel around the state and compete with other Heat teams. Locally, we're very blessed. We have a phenomenal music program that also has about 200 families involved. It's called Gulf Coast Homeschool Fine Arts. It is a Christian homeschool music program that offers 4 levels of orchestra, 3 levels of band, 3 or 4 levels of choir. And they also do state competitions. So my son has participated in all state. There's MPA, which is it's a public performance opportunity. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for homeschoolers locally. Plus, a lot of the local organizations like Players Theater and dance schools and things like that have homeschool programs that are specifically priced for homeschoolers and happen during the day because homeschoolers are available. So
it's like we just enrolled, it's the Southeast Gymnastics. We just enrolled the 2 toddlers into a daytime class. So they have a 3 to 5-year-old class, and then they've got like a boys 5-year-old on up class. And they do for homeschoolers, and they're teaching them actual Olympic gymnastics techniques.
Wow.
So, and we get it at a very discounted rate because they're trying to fill those daytime slots.
Right.
And that's something you'll find is if you homeschool, there are more opportunities because people want to try and use their facilities during the day when all the other people are in classes and they can't. And their buildings are just sitting there. So we create opportunities and then they kind of go gangbusters. But I want to speak to the myth of socialization because one of the things that we have found over the years is we actually fight to stay home. Right. Because we do what we call car schooling because we're never home. The problem is there are so many opportunities and you have so many kids that you're pulled in all these different directions because it's amazing. Jenni's kids have done incredible internships in middle school that most college students vie for that opportunity. And that was true of especially my oldest son who worked for our senator when no one else could. Right. College students were trying to page and he was doing it literally as a middle schooler. So
wow.
it's amazing what we assume. It's like watching CSI on TV and then assuming that's what the actual job is. Nothing like that at all, or Law and Order or anything else, right?
Yeah.
Because we haven't experienced it, we don't really know what it is.
Yeah, I would definitely say from knowing Maddie J, that's one of Jenni's, that's the one I know the most. And Maddie J is, he's a unique kid, but he doesn't, I love hanging out with him. There's a kindred spirit between the two of us here. But the other thing, but homeschooler, at least in my experience when I was younger, it was like, these are like the nerdy, these are the outcast kids. And Maddie J
Pastor
is not
Dave, we are not Amish.
You're not. And
funny though, because you picked of the 7 Stahlmann kids, you picked the
quietest one,
the least social.
The least social.
His personality type is very antisocial from birth.
Yes.
From birth. He never wanted anybody to look at him, talk to him. He was very standoffish from infancy. So he's our least social child. And he's still somewhat social, but compared to the other Stahlmann kids.
I'll tell you one thing that happens is, it's a very interesting social thing. Is our kids, because they're not, school is the only time that your kids are shoved into the category of only being with people your own age, right? Yeah, all through school. Yeah. So our kids don't really get that. They don't quite understand that. And they think it's normal that you talk to adults. They think it's normal that you just play with babies. And they think it's normal that your siblings are your friends.
And that older people are your friends.
Yes.
So one of Eden's best friends is my son Samuel's really close friend. And she's older than Sam. She's 2 years older than Samuel. So she's 4 years older than Eden. Eden just turned 14 and she's 18, but she's one of her closest friends, and they don't even realize the age because they're all working together so interactively and so cooperatively. So there's lots of opportunities. In fact, one of the opportunities that Learning and Families has for middle and high schoolers anyway, and I know your parents are, but you may have some people watching who have older kids. Actually, one of the Stahlmann kids began, and it has exploded over the past 3 years. We have a theater troupe that now has almost 40 kids involved. They're doing a Christmas Carol in the fall, and they're doing Shrek the Musical Junior in the spring. And so this will be their 3rd year in existence, and they are phenomenal. So I don't know when you're going to post this, but they're having a benefit concert that's open to the public where they're going to perform a whole bunch of musical numbers. And that is at Bayside on Bee Ridge on Friday, August 21st at 5:00. So anybody who wants to come,
it's coming up quick.
See homeschoolers in action.
Yeah. I get to see it and connect with other homeschool parents, because there are some that are, there are families that are like, they were going to homeschool and now they're just stepping into it. Coronavirus just kind of pushed it in. They may do this forever and they can be a part of this.
Well, can I just add one little thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're just homeschooling because of COVID, which we totally get, make it an awesome year.
Yeah.
Don't be stressed. Don't be afraid, because here's the deal. There's support and there's help. And right here, especially in our own church, we are committed to this and we want to help and we want to be a support. You're not going to go alone. You're not alone. There is help, and please reach out. Don't be afraid. If you're concerned about, I have to work from home, I don't know how to do this. There's so many ways to do it, and we can certainly brainstorm and help.
And you can't ruin your kid.
No.
That's one of the things I think parents are afraid of. You can.
Not if you love them. If you love them, you cannot ruin your children.
I was going to say, you can ruin them. Not when you love them. If you love your kids and you just take it as an opportunity to really enjoy each other
to
this
bond
year.
for a year and get to know each other.
They're not containers that we pour information into. So I know parents who are just coming into this, especially as emergency homeschoolers, are thinking like, okay, I have to get it all in. I have to check all these boxes off and I have to make sure that they learn all this stuff. No, you don't. They actually are the only teacher that they'll ever have.
Themselves.
You can present the information. You can inspire them. You can help them to get excited, but you cannot pour information into them. They have to choose like hunter-gatherers to take it in and make it a part of them and let it transform who they are. So you don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, we didn't get through the curriculum. He's never going to make it to college. No, like just let them love learning. Let them just explore all the things they may not have been able to explore. A great book for elementary school kids you can get on Amazon. I think it's called Totally Irresponsible Science. Not irresponsible. There's one that's like completely catastrophic science is like the sister, but also not catastrophic. But it's just fun experiments that kids can do.
They are if your name is Jody Hagaman.
Because they might be a little messy.
They're messy.
She's super clean freak.
I'm just looking forward to science projects, and I told them, then it's like, we're going to make things that blow up. That's what we're going to do.
You know what? Locally, there's a couple great places. One is, where we used
the Falb Science Center.
No. I was going to say that's good too. But where we went for the Boy Scout, he supported our radio station. Oh my goodness. With the toy guy.
Oh, Children's World.
Children's World.
Oh,
Yes, has awesome stuff. The other thing
they
is
have great science kids.
Yes. Another awesome, fun place to go is in Tampa, next to the David's Bridal. The
Lakeshore Learning Store.
Yeah, super fun. I'm bad with names, can you tell? But those are fun places to go get stuff.
Another thing to do for this year is to go up to Tampa and join Mosey. Get a membership Mosey, because Mosey has the best reciprocal pass in the area.
So you go to Lowry Park Zoo, you can go to Moat Marine,
the aquarium.
That's great.
We just went to Spanish Point yesterday for Rayma Joy's 4th birthday. It was super fun. But now they're owned by Selby Gardens.
Yes.
And so you get one pass and you can do both. And that is a super cool thing to do with your kids.
Yeah. And Selby Gardens has that amazing playground in it. And so
the Cornell Lab. Talk about the Cornell Lab.
Oh, so here's another really fun thing to do. Go search for, it's through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and it's called the Feeder Watch program. It's like, I want to say it's like $15 for the year, and you get a whole kit, and you put a feeder up outside, a bird feeder outside in a window. You have to be able to see out of a window to see the bird feeder.
Yeah.
Take 2 consecutive days a week. And you just, at some point in those 2 days, you go to the feeder and you look at the bird feeder and count how many different birds are there. You will learn to identify all the birds in your yard.
And some math.
You'll learn some math, because like one year we had like, we were in New Jersey, but we had mourning doves at our feeder, and there were like 60 birds at once. So we had to learn how to like group count, like, okay, 10, there's 6 of those.
But that is such cool stuff to do with your kids that it's not curriculum. You know, you're just, you're having conversation, you're spending time with them, and that conversation is so important.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the library has Hoopla, which is a free app that allows you to do audiobooks. So anytime you're anywhere in the car, put on your audiobook. Honestly, if you did nothing but read to your kids all day long and do some math, that's enough. Like really, for little kids, reading to them is probably the most important thing you can do. And audiobooks can help with that.
With conversation.
With conversation. So let's talk a little bit about the relationship from parent to child. You're now stepping into the teacher, and just y'all talking has helped me realize, like, I've been teaching my kid.
Right. Exactly what we're going to say.
So, but some parents may be feeling that tension of like, I remember the relationship that I had with my teacher, and that was different towards me as a student, as opposed to a parent-child, but also who hasn't had a kid being in school and accidentally called their teacher mom. Right. But, you know, how do you balance that relationship between this is school time and this is, you know, this is classroom time, and this is like, okay, now we're just doing our thing?
So first I want to say, you're not going to differentiate. You don't want to. You want that to be a constant, awesome relationship where you are their source of counsel, in a sense. So when it's a relationship issue, your kids are coming to you to ask for your wisdom, right? When it's You know the old adage, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink?
Yeah.
I think that would apply to a parent who's trying to be a teacher.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to force your child, you're not going to shove this curriculum down their throat. Mm-hmm. You want to sit, if you feel like you have to sit with them because they're struggling, there are so many tools you can do. Jenni had an awesome thing that she did with Maddie J this last year. He was really struggling. He was struggling with, he didn't want to do schoolwork. He was really struggling. And she did this. Tell me what you did. It was so cool with the little
binder.
Yes, it was awesome.
Well, again, this comes back. First, let me say this. I will tell you that. But first, let me say this. I think one of the things that causes a problem is I think parents have somewhere along the line lost the understanding that they are the director of their child's education, whether they choose to partner with a school to fulfill that or to do it at home. That is their role for the rest of their child's childhood, right? They are the director. And so, and teaching your children is an outgrowth of parenting. It's just an extension of parenting. So you teach your kids that the cow says moo and the dog says woof is no different than B says buck, right? It's all, we're always teaching our kids. And I think that was the realization, you just had that aha moment, right? We're always teaching our kids. But you do need to pay attention to your child's learning style. And you do need to figure out what's working and what's not working. And Maddie J is extremely independent and wants to be extremely independent. And I think part of that is his personality. Part of it is birth order. He's kind of like an only child in a house full of what feels like aunts and uncles to him, because his siblings are significantly older than he is. He has a lot of them, but they feel like adults, except for this one little
annoying
booger,
sister, right?
who's 4.5 years younger.
Who trashes breaks his toys.
And he just feels like she was born for adversity, like the Bible says, right?
Right.
So
Ray was spunky. I enjoyed. She was on her game mat last night.
I know we let her be on because it was her birthday, but normally it's a big no-no because
Maddie J was like, "Get away from me!"
I can't stand it. I was like, "It's her birthday. Let her be on the call." So so he's like alone. He's an island, and he prefers it that way.
Yeah.
And so what I recognized was I need to capitalize on his need for independence. And so what I did for him that was a little bit different was I made him a binder with a tab Monday through Saturday, because we school 6 days a week, 12 months out of the year, so that we have the flexibility when grandpa comes in town, like he did last week, to just take some time off. When Christmas comes, we can just be flexible.
Let's just be real. We have constant visitors.
Constant. We live in, Florida. It's like, it's vacation. So, so he has Monday through Saturday tabs in his binder, and I created a checklist for him, and I grouped his work, from hardest to most exciting. Hardest goes first to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
And I gave him opportunities to do half-hour breaks in between each group. There's 3 groups, and he can have a half-hour break. Now, he's the kid who most days will power through because he wants to get it all done. He does not want a break. He wants total freedom.
Yes.
So I have his chores in there. I have exercise built into there. And I've got all of his schoolwork. And I actually, even from the books that we use for his schoolwork for math and handwriting and different things, I actually cut the pages out, hole punch them, and stick them in for each day. So he just has everything he needs. We have his music practice in there. All of it's in there, and he can work at his own pace. And then he just comes to someone if he needs help. And then I check his work at the end of the week and see how he's doing. And we talk about it. Like, if there's something he really is loving, we want more of that. And if there's something that he hates, we want to try and find a replacement so that he always feels like learning is really enriching and fun throughout his life.
So the backstory to that is it took a little while to figure that out. And I think that's a lot of times where parents get hung up is they're like, this isn't working. We're not doing this anymore. And they get stressed out and they quit. Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is instead of quitting, it's trial and error. It's never a fail. It's always
problem solving.
It's problem solving. Yeah. And you're teaching your kids in that process such an amazing adult tool.
Yeah. And we want to bring them to the table in that process. Yes. And we want to empower them to feel like they really can say anything.
They have a voice.
They have a voice. And so Jody and I call that bringing out their inner genius, right? Because they have 2 people who live inside of them. They have the inner lawyer whose job is just to protect and preserve. No growth happens. You know, if they feel like they're being threatened in any way, or they feel like they're being criticized or judged, that lawyer will come out and they will say whatever is necessary to shut down the conversation. So we want to tell them like, hey, you know what? This is not working and that's not your fault. That just means we haven't found the right thing and we're going to, but it's going to take a little time and we might have to work together. So let's talk a little bit about how you feel when you sit down to this thing. What's happening?
It's this. I don't want to do
or they're mad. Some kids are mad. Matty J's an angry kid. So they'll be like, I don't like this.
Don't make me do this. Don't make me do this. That's great. And thank you so much. And I love the point that you said at the beginning, Jenni, of this, where you said that the parents are the education. You are in charge. You are the director of the education. Because I say the same thing from the spiritual side, is that me as the children's pastor, I am not the director of your child's spiritual education. You are and I have just as I'm a math teacher. That was what I went to school to do. And so I have just as many math and science conversations with my son as I do spiritual conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
It's whatever he wants to talk about. And I think that homeschooling, this gives you the ability to have those conversations all day long. Outside of those 6 hours.
And you also don't need to feel like you need to be with them the whole day. You know, like I think a lot of parents feel like they have to be physically in their space and you don't. In fact, you need to give them a lot of time to be alone and to determine what they do in that alone time. Okay. Boredom is, for whatever reason, like parents' kryptonite. They're terrified to let their kids get bored, and they constantly pack entertainment and think that they have to come up with all these activities. And
I did not have this as a child. I had to go play in the woods and figure out my own fun.
Most of us did, but now they got the Switch, they got the phone, they got the TV, they can watch whatever they want, whenever they want.
We have to limit some of those options. And they need to, when they come and say, I'm bored, you just have to say, I know that you're really smart and I know that you're going to figure it out. And boredom happens, but there is an answer and your imagination is going to rise to the occasion and you're going to figure it out. Yeah. But that means we do need to provide some tools at the same time. We need to have some art supplies handy that they're allowed to get into. We need to have some cool science materials and building materials that they can get into. But as long as we make those things available and we show them where they are. And then there's this great little concept a homeschool mom years ago came up with called strewing, where you like strategically place stuff around the house, like a magnifying glass or a cool kids magazine, and you just kind of leave it out and let them say, hey, you know, there's stuff around, just figure it out.
Yeah, just
those times of the day have to happen too.
My oldest, when he would tell me he was bored, I would, that thing over there needs to be fixed. Can you go figure it out? Yeah. You know, I mean,
teaching them life skills. So this will be the last question because we got to start wrapping up here. So, and you may have already answered this question, and because y'all have been excellent. So when parents get stuck, like I'm not worried about my wife getting stuck teaching my son kindergarten math. 0 + 5 is 5, and my son was very confused. Why would you ask such a stupid question? But like what happens? Like parents may be looking down the road, like they got a 6th grader or a 7th grader, and all of a sudden they're putting letters in the math or the science. They're talking about periodic table of elements, or even English. I got to structure a 5-paragraph essay.
Right.
What does APA reference even look like? What do parents do what can they do when they get stuck and they're just like, they don't understand it, and so they can't even teach their kid this stuff?
Most kids at that level are learning beyond their parents' understanding. And so in that case, you're using either curriculum or you're using an external course or program taught by an expert in that field. And there's lots of opportunities for that. And again, those Facebook groups are going to be your best resource to figure out which ones you need and to find which ones are going to work for you. At the same time, it's really empowering to work with our kids and teach our kids how to look up the answers. So, you don't understand this aspect of the periodic table. I bet Mr. Google does. And YouTube probably does too. There's probably great tutorials. If you're having trouble understanding this one particular math function, I bet you there's 20 awesome YouTube videos. Find them, go watch them all, and then come back. And if you still need help, then we have to think about, and this really helps our kids learn to be resourceful. Who in the community could help you with this? Maybe we can contact somebody at the community college. We've really empowered all of our kids to find answers. So
to let parents off the hook in a sense, I think the mentality we've kind of adopted is once they reach a level that has surpassed us, which for every parent is going to be different in every subject, right? It's kind of like sending them to college. We're not teaching them anything. We're sending them to somebody, or we're giving them an opportunity to go figure it out on their own. And even homeschooling, that's what we do. And that's what you want. Because as a life schooler, you want your kids to want to learning forever and ever and ever. We don't ever stop. We always want more information. We're human. That's what we want. We don't want to be these adults who sit around and become passive, sucking down television and all the garbage that's around us, because we want our kids to be an answer, right? Not part of the problem. So we want them to be able to figure out what's a good resource. Where can who's the expert that I'm in alignment with? Those are all important factors. We can make mistakes and send them to experts who are on the other side of the fence, and that can turn out bad. But we can also say, all right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about biblically, why do you think that's bad? Can we find it? Can we figure it out? Because we don't want them to blindly follow someone either, right?
This is where your support groups are really important too.
Yes.
And know what's available in your community. So for example, at Learning in Families, because math seems to be a sticky spot for a lot of parents, middle and high school math. So they have a math lab. And they have, and he does everything from pre-algebra through calculus. And kids can come in and they can bring their math in, whatever program they're using, whatever subject they're covering, even SAT prep, and he will work with them and help them to understand what they don't understand. So it's really important to plug into those Facebook groups and community support groups so that you can find out, like, hey, my kid is struggling with order of operation. I was terrible in math. I don't know how to teach this. Is there somebody who can help me? And there might be a mom who's like, I can, come on over.
Yeah.
So
I think the FOIL method is the only thing I remember.
First, outer, inner, last.
He's a math teacher.
Hi.
Yeah.
March 14th.
There it is. Well, ladies, thank you so much. I have learned way more than I ever thought I was signing up for. So in this conversation. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been Jenni Stahlmann and Jody Hagaman, if I'm saying that correct. Hagaman. And so we'll put their contact information and we'll put some of these links to these Facebook groups and your organization in the description, so you can click on those, join part of those, and be a part of it. And I know Jenni and Jody, they're at church that sometimes they brave coronavirus and come to church. And so you can recognize them with their masks on. You can come ask them questions. That's it. It's the glasses. That's the giveaway.
Well, they're not always on, but you know.
Right. So thank you so much, and thanks for doing this. And we will talk to you soon. All right. See you later.